Hello, accounting students. All right, here we are in the middle of week 2, module 2. So I wanted to check in with you, talk a little bit about week 1, talk a little bit about the quiz, and then talk a little bit about what we're doing this week because you're seeing somewhat of a new assignment. So let's jump in right now and talk about that. So this week we have, as you've noticed, we have our learning activities. And some weeks they will be somewhat questions or problems in the back of the chapters. And I do want to pause there. Make sure that you are noticing the difference. At the end of every chapter, there is a set of problems and then there's a set of questions. And what's confusing about the author is they have the same numbers. So it might be 2.11, but there'll be a 2.11, which is chapter 2, question 11. But then there'll also be a chapter 2 problem 11. Make sure that you are addressing either the questions or the problems, whatever I'm asking for that week. I try to make it pretty clear, on that particular week's learning activity. I'll say the word problem or I'll say the word question. The difference is the problems tend to be more number-oriented and the questions tend to be more narrative. And we'll kind of mix it up between the two. But just be careful. Make sure that you're watching and looking very carefully on which ones you're working on, problems or questions. Okay, that was last week. Last week we had all questions. You did great. Everybody got it perfect. Good job with that in addressing the right area of the textbooks. If you notice that you had a few points off for that learning activity 1, some students didn't really provide enough depth on the answers. So if you got a few points off, you're probably just lacking another step or two to get the full points. Vast majority of you did absolutely fantastic, really great quality work. All of you did really good work at it. Some of them just a little bit more depth. So look at the rubric. And that will guide you through what we need for those types of assignments. So, generally one sentence answers will not get you the full points. Just take another couple of steps and you'll be guaranteed to get the full points when you have those type of questions. Now this week, okay, so now change of mindset here. This week our learning activity will be a paper. Think of it like a little mini essay paper that will be no more than 2 pages. And I just want to talk a little bit about the expectations, of this paper. So this week we're going to be having a 2-page essay with the title Health Insurance. Again, a minimum of 2 references. Make sure you're using those in-text citations. A lot of questions come up on the references. What do I need to have? Well, I'll make it easy. You can obviously use your textbook. So there's one, and go find another reference. There's all kinds of stuff out there you can find at our college bookstore. Go online, or a college library. You can do everything online. No need to go to physical libraries anymore. Google Scholar is a great way. You could even have, they have textbooks, at Google Scholar that you could bookmark and use as your second reference out there. So it's pretty easy to grab a second reference on these. So only 2, and yes, it's okay to use your textbook as one of those references. This paper will only include a title page, so an APA title page, no abstract or anything like that. So we're kind of using my modified version of APA, hopefully make it simpler on you. And then you'll have the main body, the stuff that you're writing. That'll be 2 full pages. So check yourself. If you only got a page and a little bit over that, and you've used some pretty, don't use 14-point font, stick to 12-point font, 10-point, 11-point, right in there. Normal margins, don't play with the margins and make them 4 inches wide. I know all those tricks. Yes, maybe I've used them in the past. But normal margins, normal font size, about 2 full pages. If you're 1 3/4, I'm going to be fine with it. If you're 1 1/2, I might do some digging for some points off. So make sure you're kind of right in that zone, about 2 full pages, but double spaced. Okay, so hopefully that won't be too difficult. Make sure that you're using in-text citations. Okay, So hopefully you're all familiar with APA format. If you're not, again, there's wonderful resources out there. The OWL website is a great one to learn about APA format, but hopefully that is not a problem for you. If it is, send me an email message and I can put some additional resources out there for you. Some of you might be relatively new to the program and may not be quite familiar with APA yet. And that's just a type of writing as far as a format, if you will, of how your pages or how your documents are written. So you'll want to have in-text citations. Let me go back to that. Anything, any fact that you're stating in your paper that is not common knowledge, which is most likely probably everything, you're going to be using in-text citations. Where did you get that information from? So make sure you're using that. You want to make sure that you're avoiding any plagiarism issues or academic integrity issues by making sure that you are citing your sources correctly. So that's where students get some points off if they don't use, they'll have some wonderful fact that I know that is not common knowledge. And I'm like, oh man, a great paragraph here, but you didn't put the in-text citation. So, points off on that. So make sure you're doing that. So then you'll want to make sure that you have those. Again, the 2 full body pages, and then your reference page at the end, which will have at a minimum of how many? 2? At least 2 references, maybe 3. If you find a third one out there, but only 2 is required. Also, when I'm going to be grading these, if you'll notice down below here, I've got some questions. I'm looking for these questions to be answered in the body of the paper. Explain the concept of insurance. Define adverse selection and moral hazard. Explain how health insurance is financially connected to health care. And discuss the impact and influence of third-party payers to the health system. So make sure you're weaving those answers into your paper, or maybe you've had separate paragraphs, but you link it into a cohesive document. But I'm definitely looking for those and digging for those. So if you have a great paper, but you forgot to talk about the impact and influence of third-party payers to the health system, you're going to lose some points on that. So again, make sure that you're addressing those 4 content areas, and then you'll be good. All right, so that's for this week's learning activity. And then everything else is pretty straightforward for this week, other than the learning activity, which are a little bit new. We've got another progress journal. Again, hopefully it's easy for you, and another module quiz. So let's talk about quizzes. I'm going to show you something with our quizzes from last week. I know some of you had reached out to me. So what I do with each quiz is I perform, or luckily I have it done for me, thank you for Canvas, that performs a statistical analysis on the quizzes that week. I want to know if I wrote a bad question, if there was one that was kind of funky that the students didn't get. And we did have one this week, so I am tossing out one of the questions, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Also, just to let you know, we had 2 students who scored a perfect score, though. So I look for that. If nobody scored a perfect score, chances are I've got something wrong in my quiz, because there's always that top 20%, and that worked out almost perfectly to this number that seems to get a perfect score. So we did have 2 perfect scores on this week's quiz, and we have a low score, but things happen. So as I've mentioned before, keep plugging away. The quizzes are going to be the hardest thing in this course. Make sure you're getting those points that are very achievable. I don't want to say they're easy, but if you do it, you get the full points. And those are the learning activities. Put a good faith effort in there. Obviously, if you do a learning activity and you don't answer one of the questions altogether, I got to take some points off. If you have a progress journal and you don't talk to me in that progress journal, you're going to get some points off. So make sure you're getting that low-hanging fruit, and you'll be fine, even if you are getting a few points off on these quizzes. All right, so there's a little breakdown on this week's quiz. It's pretty much normal, but there was one bad question, and I'll show you right down here. And for everybody, it's going to be a little bit different. So this one, let's see. Obviously only 25% of the students got this question correctly. So it is a little bit of a challenge, a little bit tricky. It's one of these multiples. in there where you have, an AB or a ABC or a CD, that kind of thing. So I'm going to toss this question out. Everybody will get the point back for that. There was another quiz question, and it's not, I can't tell you it's a specific number. Everybody has a different number. So it's this question here: which of the following characteristics of a health service industry warrant a specific focus on healthcare finance? So that one tossed out. The one that was challenging, but we are going to keep it in there, is coming up here. Let's see here. There you go. So now about half of you got it right. 42% got it right. But this one really comes down to a fundamental question: the difference between accounting and financial management. So the question is, the primary purpose of financial management is to create and provide useful information, ding, 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 that should be the clue, about an organization's operation and financial status. If you go to the reading, let's say, looks like we're on page 8. In the margins of page 8, it has a great definition of accounting and financial management. And that's really what this question is trying to break down. The difference between accounting is more information-based. That is to provide useful information and about an organization's operation and financial status. So that's what we're going to be learning here, is the accounting aspect, that language, those that information. What the next step of that is, and this is what this question is getting to, is financial management. That's taking the information provided by accounting and then making decisions, applying decision tools and formulas and whatnot to come up with answers used by the accountants. Now, the accountants are also, in most cases, very savvy financial managers as well, but they don't need to be. They can be completely two different skill sets. So that's what this is getting at. The primary purpose of financial management is to create and provide useful information about an organization's operation and financial status. The correct answer is false. If I would have said the primary purpose of accounting is to create and provide useful information about an organization's operation and financial status, then that would be correct. So hopefully that clears it up for you folks. Again, there are some tricky questions, in these quizzes, but do your best. Definitely use the book. When they have these little call-outs or these little boxes, or especially in the margins, look at some of that information there. Also in the back of every chapter, they have those key concepts. You probably found that. Those are great little study aids as well. And of course, this is always open book, open note. Though it's timed, but I try to give you some generous time so you could, flip through there and hopefully find those answers. All right, so that's kind of what's a little summary of last week. Again, the grades look great. Thank you guys so much for providing some really great thoughts and input in your progress journals for week 1. I greatly appreciate that way to connect with you. So keep up the great work there. And with that, everybody have a great week, and I will check in with you in Module 3. Thanks.